Okay, so you've heard about high spots when you're applying coating. What are they? What do they look like? How to avoid them? Well, stay tuned because we're going to go over those details next. Hi, I'm Todd Cooprider and welcome to the Esoteric channel. Today what we're going to look at are coatings, high spots, what causes them, how to avoid them. Well, first of all, what is a high spot? Well, it's quite simple. It's an area where you've applied coating that's either gone on too thick or you didn't get it completely wiped off. And in the end, it leaves a dark spot where that is. We've got one right here on this hood. We'll show you some B-roll up close so you get a better understanding of what it looks like. And when you look closer at this hood right here, this is a test hood of ours where we try a lot of different things on it. It's got scratches, it's got sanding marks, it's got a lot of defects. This is not a perfect surface that you would normally use to apply your coating. But basically you're looking around the car afterwards, and if you see any little dark patches on it whatsoever, that's a high spot that needs to be addressed. Now for inspecting it, there's no better lighting than cloudy conditions. You can look at it every kind of light source possible, think you see it all, you take it out in a cloudy day and it's going to stand out like a sore thumb. So if you've got the ability to inspect it in the clouds afterwards, fantastic. If you've got a lighter color car, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So you have to look really closely, use a flashlight, try to find those areas. But what we're going to do is kind of show you how to avoid them. Well, first of all, with this high spot right here, we just applied some coating on, lightly wiped it off so you can see it. But basically the way it happens, as you've wiped off the product, typically speaking, it's where you've pushed it off to an edge, where you've ended that process of wiping. And in that process, you've pushed the coating over to the edge, leaving a high spot right there, a buildup of the residue of the coating itself. Now, what happens if you don't catch that and it gets a couple of days down the road? Well, it's cured, it's hardened, and the only way to fix that is going to be with machine polishing. If you catch it right away, you should be able to just continue wiping off. If it's maybe an hour or two afterwards, I'd go in and apply a little bit more coating right over top of it, let it set for a minute, then wipe it off. That's typically going to break it down. But when you're applying it, a couple things that you need to keep in mind. You want to make sure that you're going in straight, even lines. Excuse me while I reach out of camera view here. I'm going to take some coating. I'm going to put it on here just to talk a little bit about how we do it. Now we're applying it. We're not just putting it all over the place. You can't control how consistent the product is going to go on. Also, I want to avoid lifting the product as I'm doing it. If I'm going straight down a big section, I don't want to stop and then start back up because I can have a high spot right there. So you want to be very methodical as you're applying it. I'm going to go straight lines, straight down through the next area. So everything is even as possible. And like right now we're using Miyabi Coat from Kamikaze. I'm going to go back and I'm going to cross hatch that just to make sure I get everything as even as possible. And what that does is that prevents any areas in the middle where I'm at may have a heavier concentration of product that can come back as a high spot. So now I've got that applied. We're going to pretend here like we've let it set for 3 to 5 minutes. But during that removal process, really important, you want to use 2 different towels. You want to have a towel for your first wipe that's going to get rid of about 80% of it all, and then you're going to have another towel you're going to come back that's going to get the rest of it off of there. You may have heard it referred to as leveling. So when we're doing this, I'm going to use small circular motions to try to break everything down when I'm removing it. And I am not using much pressure, just enough pressure to get it off of the surface. So I'm wiping through here, and I'm going to be wiping an area bigger than the application. And because of that, that's going to mean that my area where I have coating on it has gotten a bit bigger. Now, when I go back to my secondary wipe, here I'm using a fluffier microfiber towel. I'm going to expand that area out even a little bit more just to make sure that you're getting it all. And if there's an adjacent panel here, let's say I'm doing it at the edge of the hood and there's the fender, I'm going to overlap onto the fender as I'm wiping, particularly with my secondary wipe, to make sure I get rid of all that. Now, if you're doing a removal, and let's say during that process, you're just going straight back and forth like this, you're pushing everything to the sides, and you significantly increase your chances of getting high spots. Just that little bit that I did here, you won't be able to see it in the camera, but I can see where I push product to the sides, and it's going to cause a high spot. So I'll go back in, lightly wipe all that off, and it's pretty easy to see where you have it all. But what you can do, you can go around all these edges with a flashlight and take a look, because that's typically where you're going to see some left over. You want to avoid that at all costs, because if you forget about this or you completely miss it, it goes a few days down the road, it's going to be too hardened up, and if you don't have a machine to polish that off, then you're going to have some problems. You're going to be going and paying somebody to do that for you. Now, you want to learn a little bit more about how to fix it afterwards. Click on the next video, because we're going to go into the details of a one-step polish that in most cases is going to take care of the problem, and it's going to make your surface look a lot nicer.